So I think there's going to be a big chance that a lot of people don't really vibe with this chapter, mostly because you wait 2 weeks and you kind of expect something big and glamorous to happen, but instead you get more character development, you get more narrative development, you get more things coming into the story with not much output. Personally, for myself, I enjoy these chapters. I really love them. I think it brings you closer to these characters, gives you a better understanding of how they act within times of desperation, and considering this is mimicking the original Eternity Devil arc, this is to be expected. So there may be a portion of you that is kind of like, I'm over it. 'Tis unfortunate, but there is a lot of valuable stuff here, specifically with Asa. Fujimoto is doing a really great job in bolstering her character in such an addicting way. Currently, where you probably sit is in this weird limbo position with how you feel towards Asa. On one hand, you like her, and on the other hand, you think she might be a little bit annoying or obnoxious, and then on another hand, you feel bad. So there's so many different ways to think about her with how flip-floppy she is with her emotions and how she acts. On one hand, she's kind of argumentative and aggressive towards Yoru, and then the next, she has this ego towards Denji with trying to prove him wrong and thinking she can do all of these things, and then the next, you see her belittled and filled with anxiety and not really sure on what to do. You can tell that a lot of these faces that she is putting on is not herself. Maybe partially bits and pieces of it is, but the whole face definitely isn't. And I think the more you see of that, the more it's kind of repeated to you, the clearer it becomes. And I think at the moment, this chapter is the most clearest on where Asa sits naturally, emotionally, and mentally, compared to the faces that she puts on to technically survive, to adapt, to fit in with other people. I think the funniest thing about this, however, is the one person that actually gets her and doesn't give her a hard time is the one that she's always the most angry against, and that is Denji. See, Denji's a pretty, I would say, low frequency, low vibration type individual. He doesn't really care. He kind of just exists and vibes and isn't really argumentative until you argue with him. Now, you could say that this is amplified quite a bit because within part 2, he's been shown to be very docile and kind of tired and sick of everything, and it's probably because he's genuinely just exhausted. After everything he's been through within part 1, the people and family that he's lost, the fact that he's taking care of a lot of dogs, he's taking care of Naoto, who is a child, he's also trying to go to school and make enough money to support everyone. This is a difficult thing. For once, you're actually seeing him most likely express that difficulty on his face. He just seems out of it 24/7. He just seems tired. But a lot of his emotions kind of spark up within Asa because they conflict with one another. And I wouldn't say it's in a disingenuous or negative type of way, but something that might actually be healthy for both of them. They are very similar in that regard. In this chapter, you see a lot of times where they do clash, pretty much the exact same way. It might be weird to say it like this, but out of everything that this chapter provides, Asa feels more comfortable with Denji. She'll never express that, but just by observation, she acts so openly and freely with Denji because she probably thinks that she's better than him, when in reality, that might just be her true self, where she's willing to actually express how she feels when she's upset, when she's angry, etc., to someone that obviously is not going to let it slide, but not belittle her or judge her for absolutely nothing. When it comes to Denji, it's usually always in response to something being said to him. Funny enough, even though Fami, the Famine Devil, is kind of orchestrating this whole situation, and we know that the way to get out of the Eternity Devil is to turn Denji into a weapon, 3 individuals rock up in a very timely manner. The Devil Hunting Club. This is Haruka, that is the fake Chainsaw Man guy or Weed Whacker, whatever you want to call him, the Eye Patch guy, and a new character that we haven't seen before. But just to add to these random 3 people being here for whatever reason, even though they explain that they're here for quote-unquote patrolling, I do think they are playing in hand of Fami. I wouldn't be surprised if they were with Fami when she kickstarted this whole event, and that's why they too are also trapped in here, probably without her knowledge. I highly doubt they know who she actually is and what she's capable of. If they do know, it's probably only the fake Chainsaw Man Haruka, who I believe got his abilities from Famine. I think his personality and his ego falls perfectly in line with what Fami may have offered him. I can give you power and glory and fame with this ability. That's just a random idea, but time will tell with that one. To add more spice to this situation, Yoshida is here. For no reason, he says he wants to see the fish. This is not true whatsoever. I don't think this is the case. I think this is pretty straightforward that he's following Denji and Asa because he doesn't want Denji to reveal himself, and knowing how Denji acts, most likely doing it on a date would be a possibility. So he's there to stop that if it does actually happen. Seems pretty applicable for this situation. So you have quite an interesting group going on currently, just all over the place. Yoshida doesn't know who the the Devil Hunting Club is, but they know who he is because he's rather famous, and they all mesh rather oddly. I think funny enough, the biggest surprise in here, which isn't technically a reveal because we don't know who this person is, but just based on how they're acting, who they look like, and some pretty iconic artistry that goes with them, one of the Devil Hunting Club members looks similar to Kobeni. So this could easily be one of her sisters or brothers. Now your first thought is probably brother, however the timeline for that doesn't really line up. We know that Kobeni has an older brother that was told to us within part 1. However, this character is not older than Kobeni, technically would be younger, but is still striving to go to college. Could be a younger brother, or it could be one of the handful of sisters that Kobeni has. I will say, because we don't really know the gender of this character, even though they are wearing a quote-unquote male-specific uniform, Fujimoto does seem to enjoy playing around with cross-dressing, trans-like, or just non-binary-esque characters, respectfully. A lot of his works feature those type of characters, and I think he always does a pretty great job with representing those individuals, obviously within the world they take place in. This could be another one of those situations, and I'd be very happy to see it kind of unfold that way. Either way, who they look like, how they're acting, and the trademark hair pieces looks identical to the Kobeni family. I wouldn't be surprised if they're related. This is a pretty moment-to-moment type chapter. After everyone's kind of collected together, they slowly start to talk to each other and figure out the do's and don'ts and how to actually survive this situation. They eventually find a spare room that's filled with water. They're able to take some of the fish that they can find as well, and they have a lighter. All of their resources are basically covered, and they can keep looping this over and over again, theoretically. Even through their little exploration method and trying to figure out more about the Eternity Devil, there's a moment in here that I find rather compelling. It's very small, it's very simple, but I think does a lot to show, I guess, the true nature of what Asa genuinely represents. When they're about to eat some of the fish, Asa says that she can't eat it, and she says, I quote, "Fish just, it looks too much like a dead animal, it grosses me out." She says this honestly, she sees the reaction, she then stumbles and kind of gets kind of weird and anxious about her response, and then she goes outside to catch her breath. This one page I absolutely love. I think it's Asa's character through and through, and pretty much the story of her life. She does not have good social awareness, she hasn't really interacted with people, she's never really had friends, so when she speaks honestly, without any guidance or guidelines or awareness for the situation, reading the room so to speak, people might look at her funny, and even if those people aren't judging her, she's going to overthink it because that's all she's ever known, and she gets anxious and nervous and bails even more quickly. I think the funniest thing about this is what I was saying before. The person who she meets outside is Denji, and he naturally pulls her out of this anxiety-driven state that she was in, which I find rather nice. Instead of her being scared and worried about the situation, instead she's now openly speaking and even arguing with Denji once again. Denji is doing Denji things. He found $10 or 1,000 yen randomly, and he gets called a thief, which obviously he's going to argue that point, that's what he does, and they go back and forth like the two brain cells that they share between each other, which is kind of refreshing. This whole sequence between them, I think, as kind of destructive and conflicting as it is, I believe it to be healthy, at least for Asa to express herself more naturally in a way to someone that is similar. I think they share a lot of different traits just from different angles, two different sides of the same coin. Just to close it off really nicely, she tries to get the opinion of Yoru, stating that she really should turn him into a weapon because that's what he deserves. And instead of getting the response from Yoru that she usually expects, some sort of back and forth, she gets nothing. Yoru is obviously not there. The expression that she makes for this is kind of sad. It seems lonely, almost like she sees Yoru as a friend slightly, even though at the beginning she said that she wanted to try and kill the fake Chainsaw Man who she believes is the real one so she can get rid of Yoru. This facial expression kind of tells the opposite. Deep down she probably still wants it, but I'm sure there's genuine moments or times with Yoru that she appreciates because she can speak freely. This motivates her to not be a loser like Denji, and she's going to contribute to the group. She pulls out a cell phone and gets to work with trying to contact the outside world. Everyone is cheering her on, everyone's praising her, everyone's excited, they're all happy that they'll be able to get out and survive and continue living their life. She's lapping it all up, she loves this praise. However, it does not end well. As we know from the beginning of the story, whenever she has to clutch up, whenever there is a time of need, she always trips. You've seen it multiple times through this story, and she does it now. She trips, falls, and breaks the cell phone. And then you see the true face of what she was actually scared of before, the judgment, the guilt, and you actually get it expressed to you by the fake saw weed whacker boy. These very harsh words leave you on the final page with Asa, head in her arms, just upset about the whole ordeal. She tried her best, This is a recurring theme for Asa, and is the reason why I think she feels so comfortable with Denji, funny enough. It's emotional, it's sensitive, it's character building, and it goes a long way to kind of find herself in these darker times, because eventually she's going to partially conquer it. She's going to heal it, she's going to aid it in some way, where it's beneficial towards herself. I think this is also a good example that she will most likely never turn Denji into a weapon. She's just not that person. She may accidentally do it, and I think there is ways to do it, but when it comes to actual humans, I think it's going to take a lot longer than she thinks, if it ever actually happens. I wouldn't be surprised at this point, because she gave us so much information on the previous chapter about starfishes and the aquarium sea life, and the fact that she can't eat dead fish whatsoever because she feels bad for them. She'll most likely use them as a weapon. It'd be funny if it turned out that way. I'm not too sure why she would use it as a weapon unless she wants to fight the Eternity Devil. For some reason, I also thought her phone would make for a good weapon because it was her mother's and it just broke, so she probably feels really bad about it now. There's also that opportunity as well. Personally, I really enjoyed this chapter. I know a lot of you aren't necessarily going to vibe with it, but I love these beat by beat moments and how it feels back directly into the character and their growth. I'm very excited for next week because we are getting another chapter just to end off the year nicely, but I want to hear your thoughts right now. Thank you.